Hello everyone. Today we're going to be learning about how to build dynamic pages with Gust. This is where you might want to add, the post title or post data, post meta. You might want to build, like a loop of posts, a list of posts, or a list of any other custom data that you might have. So let's dive straight into it. I'm in the Gust page builder here. I'm going to add a container here just to get some layout going on. And I'm going to add in a heading. And under the content, we've got this text editor where we can write whatever we want. But under the content type, if we drop this down, we've also got a few different options here. The one we're going to look at today is post data. So if we choose post data, we get given this little select box here. And you see we've got all these different, options here. We're going to choose post title, which seems fairly self-explanatory. This is going to pull the post title from whichever post we're building on. And we're just going to save that. We're going to have a look over here. This is the page we're working on, and this is the post title that we've got. So now if we preview this, you can see it's updated the title and displays our title. Pretty basic. If I change this, remove that, tutorial, and click update, then when we go back and view this page, this updates with it. The next thing that you might want to pull from a post is say like post meta. It's pretty common for people to use advanced custom fields to add metadata to a post, and Gust has support for advanced custom fields. So I've set one up here. It's called Gust date. It's a date picker. And what I want to demonstrate here is that Gust respects these sort of formatting options which ACF provides us. So on the display format, this is going to display when you're editing the post. We've got this one here. I've chosen this format here to display, when you're pulling the data, So we're going to add in, the field name is Gust date, and we're going to add in a new element below the post title. Below the post title. And under the content, we're going to choose post meta, and we're going to add Gust date and save. Now when we preview, it pulls in the date from advanced custom fields. And if we change this formatting to say this one, and we save, then when we reload, it reflects those changes. So it's pulling whatever metadata is set on the post, running it through advanced custom fields to ensure that we get all of that formatting from them and displaying it. So you've got lots of different options here. These sort of pre-built ones, these pre-built options, there are plenty of them. Thumbnail URL, excerpt, status, post date, kind of all these common bits of post data that you might want to work with. So moving on from that, the next sort of thing that you might want to do, pretty common, is to display a list of posts. So we're going to add in a new div below all of this. Let's say my 16, and let's add in a little heading in here, and we're going to say post list. So Gust has this notion of context, which if you're familiar with WordPress, and developing with WordPress, this is kind of similar to what WordPress would call the loop. And it allows us to pull in a list of data from somewhere else and iterate over it. So I'm going to go up to this containing div here, and we're going to click on context, and under the context type, we're going to choose WP query. And this gives us a little interface into building a query. So we can choose any different post types. We can change the order, change how many posts display. So for the sake of this demonstration, let's assume that we're wanting to display the latest, the latest 5 posts. So we'll add that there. But there's still, there's nothing to tell Gust to actually display those posts. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another div here. And we're going to say grid cols 3, gap 4. And let's add a div inside there. And in this one, we're going to select context, and we're going to say context type, use context loop. Now this tells Gust to take whatever context we were passed, or whatever context we're in rather, and loop over it. And we'll give some visual feedback as well that that's happening. So inside here, we're going to add a div, and you can see that this is kind of repeated a couple of times. And under the content, we're going to say post data and post title. And again, you'll see that that's repeated a couple of times. Actually, sorry, no, why don't we pull in a little heading, because it's kind of pre-formatted for us. So we'll add that there. We'll say content type is going to be post data, and we'll choose the post title. And this one down here, let's change this to say the excerpt. And let's save that. And now if we come over here, refresh the page, you see we've got a list of posts with the post title and the excerpt going on. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty easy. It's very common practice that we might want to, display a list of posts. And you can get pretty advanced with this context up here. There are lots of different options just within the query builder itself. But you'll see that there are a couple of other ones here. Single post, so we can choose, an individual post. That wouldn't be so much for looping, but we might want to have like a featured post to display information about, but retain the layout. Post meta, which we'll come to in a little bit. But what I want to look at the moment is filter. So what we're going to do actually is duplicate this whole section. And we're going to say filter. Now, if you're working as a theme developer or building a site for a client, you might want to pull in some custom data that you have. This could be anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose this outer div again, and we're going to select context, and we're going to change this to filter. And I have over here added a Gust FAQs filter, and it's using this FAQ item. So this function returns an array of objects, an array of arrays. Each one has a title and a content. So the key for us is to take this value here, Gust FAQs, and under the filter name here, we're going to type Gust FAQs and select save. But this isn't going to work very well for us because, here we're pulling the post title and the post excerpt, but over from our code, we're actually returning an array. Each one has a title and content. So what we are going to look at is using some custom metadata as well. So over here, instead of using post data as the content type, we're going to use post meta. And for the meta key, we're going to look over here, and I've set up a couple: Gust FAQ title and Gust FAQ content. And you'll see that the functions for each of these arguments receive the value as the first argument, which we're not going to use, but they also receive the context. And because we're in a loop, the context in this case is going to be like this single array, for example. So we were going to return the title and the content for each of these. So let's just reiterate here. We want to pull in the Gust FAQ title and the Gust FAQ content. So let's change this to say Gust FAQ title, and we'll click on this one, and we'll go to post meta again. Oh, sorry, not post meta, filter. And we'll say Gust FAQ content. We better update this one to use filter. Gust FAQ title, cool. And we can put in a default value here as well in case there is nothing. So I'm going to save that. And if we refresh here, we'll see that we've now got these FAQs, which we've already set up in our custom data. So that's pretty cool. But it can be a little bit cumbersome setting up setting up filters for each one of those. So let's duplicate this again. And we're gonna explore two other options here. So let's change this. We're gonna say post meta and attributes. So over in advanced custom fields, I have set up another little field group called FAQs. It's a repeater. Its name is Gust FAQs. You can see that it's type repeater. And each one has a title and a content field. On my page, I've set up a few here: FAQ 1, 2, 3, content 1, 2, and 3, all very basic stuff. So what we're going to do is in this section here, we're going to again go up to get the surrounding div. We're going to go into the context, and we're going to change the context to use post meta. And this is going to allow us to pull this field from advanced custom fields. So just double checking here, the field name is Gust FAQ. So we're going to copy that, paste that in as the meta key. So what we've done is told Gust that the context for this div here is going to be the meta value, the metadata Gust FAQs. And that's, in this case, coming from advanced custom fields. In the context of this post, that's going to be an array, and each array is going to contain an object that has a title property and a content. So over here in the title, we could set up a filter. This same filter actually I think will work, because what we have is we've been passed the item in context, which coming out of advanced custom fields is an array with a title and a content property. So this is probably going to work fine. So let's just, where are we? Refresh this, and it's displaying our content. just as we expected. But again, we don't really want to have to set up filters every single time. So Gust has another option for rendering content. We've covered filter, we've covered post meta. We have this final one here called property. So we're going to choose this, and property basically allows you to choose a property for whatever value comes through in context. Now remember that in this case, we're getting past an array from advanced custom fields, and each item in the array has a title and a content field. So we're going to pull in the title, and in here we're going to pull in, we're going to change this to property, and we're going to pull in content. And we'll save that. And now when we refresh our page, we don't see any changes, obviously, because we're still pulling in the content 1, content 2, and content 3. So this is exactly what we wanted. We can use this outer context to pull post meta from the post. We can use this inner div to, this one here, to loop over that content. And within each of those items, we can pull properties from the item that is in context. So we can pull the content and the title. And this allows us to build some really dynamic pages. So just to recap, we've got post meta, post data, which just pulls information from the post. We've got post meta, which pulls metadata from the post based on its meta key, and it will format it if there's any formatting set up with advanced custom fields. If you're not using advanced custom fields, this is just going to pull the post meta straight from the database. We have context. In this case, we're using WordPress query, and we're using post data again. In this one, we have context coming from a filter that we've set up, and each item is using a filter again to display its content. And finally, we have context that's set up from metadata on the post, and each item in that context is using the property content type to pull in data from the post. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that, this allows you to go on and build some really cool pages with dynamic data. Any questions or comments, leave them in the comments. You can also find support on the Gust support page. I'm going to leave docs in the description to our help, our documentation, also to the support channels. If there's any questions, please ask them. Always happy to answer. And happy building.